please turn them off. Don't silence them, turn them off, please. You're on the honor system, I get it. But it drives me nuts. And it drove me nuts as a coach when we're not focused on what we're trying to do. So please, I would ask you to turn your cell phones off. We are very fortunate to start off a new initiative in athletics this year. And the reason why we've invited sophomores through our senior class, we are going to put in place this year a leadership program. Several different aspects that involve the term leadership. And at Misericordia, one of the things that you do so well is that you have separated yourselves in terms of people, students, and athletes. We talk about this all the time. What you do in the community, the service that you have put in. You lead the conference in so many different categories academically. And of course, the successes that we have had athletically. So the opportunity for us to give back to you is important. And we feel that in order to separate yourselves from others when you walk across the stage and you earn your piece of paper and you decide or trying to figure out what's next, we have an obligation in athletics to say thank you. And this is one of those ways, and we're starting that tonight. Coach Johnson is our keynote speaker, kicking off our leadership series. We've asked our coaches to nominate from our sophomores up. At the end of the night, if you feel this is a program that you would like to be involved with, we're going to meet once a month, October, November, take December, January off, February, March, and April. We'll have different members of the internal and external community coming to speak to you, to give you some skills that you can take forward that will separate you from other people at the next step, whether it's grad school or the job market. So we have a responsibility to say thank you to you for what you have done. And we're hoping that this starts with this program tonight. Coach Johnson coaches about 15 minutes from where I grew up in Rochester, New York, and had a great career. And his story, some of you may remember. The catapult to his story happened in 2006, which means many of you in the room were 10, 11, maybe 12 years old. But, all being athletes, you probably turn on SportsCenter once in a while, and when Coach starts his night with you, and his program with you, you may recognize a little bit. But I want to make sure that I don't miss anything that is important before Coach steps up. A decision based on kindness in a high school basketball game turned Coach Johnson into a national news celebrity and an authority on the subject of making dreams come true. Now, as he speaks around the country to associations, corporations, and corporations, Coach emphasizes the importance of teamwork, sportsmanship, and leadership. The same concepts that helped him develop the high school women basketball teams for more than 30 years. Coach has appeared on Oprah, Good Morning America, ESPN, and dozens of national TV and radio shows. In 2011, he released his first book, A Coach and a Miracle, Life Lessons from a Man Who Believed in an Autistic Boy. I'm sure that after his presentation, you'll see why we are so happy to have him with us tonight to kick off our leadership series. So without further ado, it is my pleasure, and would you please give a warm welcome to Coach Johnson.
What we all want in life is a shot. But what we do with it, that's the story we all want to tell.
I've coached for 25 years and I've never experienced that, the emotional high of what happened.
What happened for Jason McElwain, or J-Mac as his friends call him, is about more than a shot. Diagnosed with autism at 2 years old, now identified as highly functioning, he's never considered himself different or separate, especially when it comes to sports.
Sports has always been, how could I say, his equalizer. He's just like any of the other kids out there.
It's not really a big deal at all. I'm just normal like other people. That's the way I am.
At 5'6", J-Mac didn't make the junior varsity basketball team at his high school, Greece Athena, near Rochester, New York. Instead, he became team manager, a role he now has for the varsity as a senior. In the last 3 years, in his white shirt and black tie, he's missed only one game.
We go to practice, I set up the clock and get the water in games and be enthusiastic.
As this season was wrapping up, Coach Johnson approached Jason with an idea about the Trojans' final home game of the season.
I said, I'm really going to look to try to get you in the game, but remember, I can't promise you that. And he goes, okay, Coach.
February 15th, Greece Athena against Spencerport, senior night. With word out that Jason might play, the student section printed signs of J-Mac's face, just in case. And with 4:19 left in the game, with the Trojans up by 20, Coach called down to the end of the bench for number 52.
I just kind of turned and pointed at him, and he almost ran right on the court. He was so excited.
Hey Jay, you gotta check in. So he hits the buzzer, and he doesn't go anywhere. It's like now you go on the court. He was so caught up in the moment.
He came into the game, they all stood up and they put the signs, the pictures of him up, and I got really emotional. And I sat down and started crying.
With 3:46 left, Jason got the ball.
When he missed that first three, I was like, oh, and then it airball, and I was like, man, I really just want to see him score one time.
I put my head in my hands, like, dear God, please, let's just get my basket.
Then, with 3:12 left, another chance.
That third trip down the court. Imagine.
As soon as I started hitting my first shot, I just kept shooting, and I was just hot as a pistol.
Shot after shot after shot kept going in.
The basket was like this big old huge bucket, and I was shooting like they were free throws. This is a big old huge bucket that's like huge.
And I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? He has more points than me, so he's got record.
He was unstoppable for that moment in time. He was unstoppable.
He comes down the court right at the end with like 3 seconds left, and he hits this one that's, probably like an NBA three. As soon as the gun ended, they stormed the court. I couldn't, I just couldn't dream anything like that.
It felt like we won a championship. Yeah, everyone was just so happy for me.
In that 4 minutes, 19 seconds, Jason was 7 for 13, 6 of 10 from three-point range, 20 points in all. In his first and only varsity basketball game, J-Mac was the high scorer.
Truly the most incredible moment I've ever had as coaching. I was so touched, and it was just so special to me that a young man, his dream came true, and that I could help that was awesome.
What we all want in life is a shot. J-Mac took his, and now it's a story we can all tell.
Does anybody remember that story? Isn't that the essence of leadership, to help other people that you work with shine? What's your thoughts on that? What I found in my journey is trying to become a leader. I'm going to share that. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey. We will come back to that story, and I'll fill in a few details. Is that I found that you have to really make it a study. Whatever you want to do great in, you have to study. And I didn't understand that when I was your age. So I'm hoping tonight that I can really make an impact and help you think about what it takes to be a successful leader. How many of you believe you're a leader? Show me a hand. Not too many hands. I hope that's going to change tonight. As I believe all of you are capable of being an effective leader. And with these principles and other things that you will learn in your journey here at school and after college, you'll find that you can be an effective leader. I truly believe that. So let's start by asking you a question. I'm going to give away a free copy of my book. The question is, in one word, how would you define leadership? Now, there's no right or wrong answer, but to win the book, there is a right or wrong answer. If you hit the answer, I will give you a free book. Would anybody like to share their thought? Yes, sir.
Service.
Service. Great word. Unfortunately, didn't win the book, but it's still a good word. Anybody else? Yes?
Selflessness.
Selflessness. Excellent. No book, but a very good one. Yes? Living a dream? Dream? Great word. It's another one of my keynotes, in fact, but no book. Communication. One of my 7 keys will go into it, but no book. Team. We'll talk about team a lot tonight. Unfortunately, no book. Yes. Inspirational. You're getting closer. It starts with an I. Yes.
Influence.
Influence. We have a I've got some copies of my book, and I'm showing this just not glad, but that's up to you. Come down. I got some bookmarks too. If you want to come down and see me afterwards. But let's talk about influence for just a moment. If you think about some of the leaders in history, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., did they influence people? Yes, and we think in a positive way, correct? How about Adolf Hitler? Did he influence people? Unfortunately, he did. In a very negative way. So influence is a major factor, and that's what I want to stimulate your thinking tonight, is how can you be a positive influence here at your school and in the bigger game, the game of life. All right, so we're going to go through, and I'm going to take you through. There it is. A little bit about my leadership journey. When I went to college a couple years ago, that's what's life. I thought, because I was a pretty good athlete in high school, and basketball was my number one love, and I thought with my great skills that I was going to go to college, I was going to kill it at college, and then go right to the NBA. Maybe even not make it through 4 years of college. Well, I got to college, I played my freshman year, I transferred to another school, and I tried out my sophomore year, and I got cut from the team. Pretty humbling. Okay? And unfortunately, for about a year, because I couldn't handle it, I made a really bad mistake. I changed my major, and I hope it's a major that none of you are involved in, although I was very good in it. My major was partying. That was excellent. Notice my grades slipped immensely, so I don't recommend it at all. Fortunately, my junior year, I met a young lady that helped change my life, and we've been married now for 36 years. And she helped me get back on track. And so when we got married, my dream was I wanted to be a teacher and a coach, and I wanted to coach varsity basketball at the high school level. And after 3 years of being assistant at the high school level, I got an opportunity at 25 years old, which is pretty young in my profession, to be a head coach at a high school about 20 minutes from where I grew up. And I was excited. I thought I knew everything there was about coaching. And I was going to lead this team that wasn't very good from the outhouse to the penthouse in a very short period of time. In fact, I thought the first year. Well, after 2 games, we were 1-1. I said, I've got this. Then with my great coaching wizardry, I led that team to 17 consecutive losses. And then I didn't like what the administration had to say to me, so I left that job. Of course, what they said to me, you're fired. It was a very, very humbling experience. Now, think of all of you. Imagine you got your dream job, and after 1 year, you're fired. What are you going to do? Hey, what are you going to do? Are you going to give up? Are you going to change careers? I don't know. Everyone has their own answer. But I want you to think about, because we all are going to go through adversity in our life. We've already had adversity to some degree. Okay? And it's going to keep coming. But the magic is, are you keep growing as a person and keep getting better, which we're going to talk about in that. So from there, after that, I got a chance the next year to work at a college as assistant coach. And I got a really good mentor. His name was Bill Van Gundy. Coach Van Gundy coached at a local junior college in Rochester. And ironically, he had a good basketball background, and both of his sons coached as head coaches in the NBA. Well, as I mentioned, though, my dream is I really wanted to stay at the high school level. So after a year of coaching at the college level, I went back and got a varsity job at a smaller school, about 30 minutes from my hometown. And after working with Coach Van Gundy and starting to think about if I was going to be a better coach and a better teacher, I had to become a better leader. And to be a better leader, I had to make a study. And we'll talk about that as we go through. But here were the 7 steps that you will go through tonight. The first one is clarifying your vision. Second one is building trust. The third one is creating an edge. The fourth one is effective communication. The fifth one is lead by example. Sixth is leaving a profit, a leadership philosophy, which we'll talk about and get you to talk about tonight. And 7 is servant leadership. So those are the 7 that I put together in my study. And early on in my career, those took some time. I didn't figure that out in my 20s. So hopefully you get your leadership style figured out much quicker than I did. Because as I said, I lost my first job. Well, I took over this small school, and the first thing that I felt is to be an effective leader, who is the first person you must lead? Who? Yourself. Okay? The best leaders add disciplines to their life consistently and lead themselves effectively. Okay? So when we talk about these 7 steps, now the first thing, when I took over this small school, is that I started in on number 1, clarifying your vision. Okay? And we started to talk about what our program was going to look like. And I did a lot of discussions with our team, and we talked about this. What was our program mission? Because I believe if you do any study of the best teams, the best businesses, they have an overriding mission that is bigger than profitability, although they're profitable because of the mission, and they stay focused on that with the idea that they're going to live that. Now, we said the first person you got to lead is who? You. Now, if you're leading yourself, then the first thing you have to do is you have to understand why are you put on this earth? What is your purpose? And that's what we call a personal mission statement. Now, I started to talk to a lot of businesses, I talked to a lot of schools, I started talking to more and more colleges. Is there anybody in this room that has their personal mission statement in writing? I don't see any, which is not surprising. Okay, now let me ask you this. Has anybody ever heard of a personal mission statement? Okay, good. We've got some work to do. First thing is, with your mission statement, that is going to be one of my goals for you, is to start you to think about your purpose of life. Because to be an effective leader, the people you lead, they have to understand what you are all about. Now, how do you develop a personal mission statement? We're not going to have time to delve into it, but I'm going to give you a couple ideas. One, you should know what your core values are. What does that mean? What is most important to you? Example for me, integrity is number one. I want to lead a life of integrity. Have I ever made mistakes? Of course. Hundreds. But what I started to think about, and what my mission statement, as you can see up there, is I started to develop, okay, what was important to me as a teacher, a coach, and as a leader? What was important to me was I wanted to be a great example for my student athletes. Okay, so if you see that mission up there, it says to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. Now, if you break that up on a daily basis, what I was trying to do is think about, am I being a good mom? Am I helping others achieve their dreams? Okay? So I want to stimulate your thinking tonight. Then, as a leader, once you're clear about your personal mission, then whatever group you're leading, whether it's a team, a business, an association, whatever it happens to be, you have to get buy-in about what our mission is for our programs. And that's what we did. When we took over at this small school called LaVoy High School, I started to ask my players, you know what the first thing you told me? You want to win. That's what he said. Okay? And you know what I said back? I'd like to win too. I'd rather win as opposed to lose. But to me, going back to my mission to be an outstanding role model and make a difference in their lives, it was more important to me that we did not specifically finite winning games was the only thing, our only purpose. Our purpose was to develop winners on the court, my sport, and off the court. And then what we would do is talk about that on a daily basis. What does it take to win on the court? The scoreboard is obvious. But are you a good teammate? Are you a leader on our team? And we try to teach each of our players to be a leader. Are you a good sport? Can you handle adversity in a positive way? Those are what we're looking for to win on the court. Then win off the court. How are you doing as a student? How are you doing in your community? Are you supporting? Are you giving back? Are you making a difference? Those are the things that we constantly reinforced with our young people that we wanted to see develop winners on and off the court. Now, the interesting thing, when I've studied a lot of successful businesses, is that I've seen that profitability is never their number one goal in their mission, yet successful businesses are profitable consistently, otherwise they wouldn't stay in business. You understand what I'm saying? But they have an overriding mission that's more important that they live that, and that's why they're profitable. The same thing with our basketball situation. When I took over at this small school, they had won 2 games the year before, which is twice as much as I won the first year I coached. All right? And then our first year we won 8. In our second year we won 13. Okay? So we were headed in the right direction. And what we really embraced was that what were we going to do consistently so we could be winners on the court and off the court. Okay? So what we're going to do, ask you, is that we're going to now go through a little bit of a culture activity. And we're going to, and in just a moment, we're going to have everybody stand up. One of the things that we really tried to focus in with our program mission and each individual mission was to develop a positive culture. Okay? Let's have everybody stand up. Now, I've got my whistle to stop you. All right, you are going to now, the first scenario, so I want you to walk around, we're going to do about 20 seconds, and you're going to take this attitude. Coach, I hate doing these things. Why are we doing these things? Just take that to the mindset. As you go around and greet people, greet them with that kind of attitude and mindset. Go ahead, you have 20 seconds. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right. Second one.
I really appreciate you brought your girlfriend to us.
Everybody like they're your best friend or very close family member. Go ahead. Hey, thank you. Have a seat.
Coach Lindsay.
Has anybody ever been on a team in Culture 1? Wasn't too much fun, was it? Has anybody ever been on a team, and hopefully your team right now, is that Culture 2? Okay? Because I noticed in Culture 2 activity, I saw a lot of people hugging. I saw no hugs in Culture 1. Okay? And that's when I think you really have something special when you understand and you individually and as a group, as a team, can live that mission consistently day in and day out. And I've heard a lot of special things about young men and young women in this room that I'm really impressed by. All right? And I hope that we can really leapfrog you to a next step as you start to realize what it takes to be a successful leader. Now, I was at Leroy High School for 2 years, but my ultimate dream was I grew up in a suburb of Rochester called Greece. And it's a big suburb, and I got a chance to come back to my hometown as a teacher. Unfortunately, there was no varsity basketball positions in my hometown when I was called back as a teacher, so I took another job for another year as assistant coach at a Division III school in Rochester. And I picked up some more ideas. I got another mentor. In fact, how many here have a mentor? Someone they go to. Because if you don't, I highly recommend you start reaching out to people who can help mentor you. You're going to learn from your own mistakes, but you're not going to have time to make all the mistakes. So if you can learn from people that have done it before you, it will help your learning curve immensely. Okay? So we're looking at that. We're moving on. And now, so that's your first homework assignment. You thought in my talk there would be no homework. Untrue. Okay? I was a former teacher. So I really want you to think about why were you put on this earth? And start putting words down. It'll take you some time, but believe me, it will help you immensely in becoming a better leader and a better person by knowing who you are, what you're all about. So after a year at a college, a school in Greece, varsity position opened up called Greece Olympia. And I got named the head coach. My ultimate dream, I was now coaching at a high school where I grew up. And I was excited. And that program was in pretty bad shape. At Leroy, I told you they won 2 games before we got there. At Greece Olympia, they had won 2 games the previous 2 years. That's 1 apiece. And in 10 years, they had 1 winning season. And in our second year there, we had a winning season. And I thought, magic. I've got this leadership figured out. Wrong. Third year, 2 wins. Okay? And it was probably the worst year of my coaching career, not because of the 2 wins, but because of the underachievement and what a poor job I did as a coach. Okay? And it was culture 1 that we just went through. Okay? And that's when I really went to work. I realized I didn't have enough of these ingredients. And it did get better. My 4th year, we didn't have a winning season, but we won a lot more games. And then the 5th, 6th, and 7th year, we had 3 of the best years in the school's history. We were #1 seed in our sectional tournament. We made the semifinals 3 straight years. And things were really starting to get much better. And then, as a leader, I believe you're always up looking, is there a better opportunity? And for me, that was. One of our sister schools I thought was the best program. They had been really good. They dropped off. The head coach decided to get out. And I applied for a sister school called Greece Athena. And I thought that was really going to be my dream job. And it was. We had a lot of success. We had a winning record the first year. I was there 20 years. We never had a losing season. But unfortunately in coaching, in being an athlete, you can recognize this. You are recognized, unfortunately, a lot by how you do in the postseason. And there I was falling short. At Greece Olympia, we had made the semifinals 3 years. My first 7 years at Athena, we never even made the semifinals, even though we had winning records, we had winning division. So I still didn't have it quite figured out. And that's when I really increased my leadership study. What was I doing? How do I take the next step? And to give you an example, for those that follow basketball, last year, now I know it's different, a little bit different in college, in high school as compared to the NBA. But last year, the Toronto Raptors had the best record in the history of the Toronto Raptors. You know what happened to their coach? He got fired because they lost in the first round of the playoffs. Okay? So, and that's kind of what I was feeling. Even though I didn't get fired again, I didn't quite have it figured out. So finally in 2002, we got to the semis again. My 4th time as a coach, and we lost. Then in 2003, I had a real blessing in my life. I had a young man come into our program. His name was Jason McElwain. You saw the end result. Jason is on the autism spectrum. Does anybody know anyone on the autism spectrum? Because when I started speaking 12 years ago, I had very few hands up. When I met Jason, it was 1 in 150 children born in the United States are on the spectrum. It's now 1 in 68. In the latest research, they think it's 1 in 59. So that's staggering. But despite the fact that Jason was on the spectrum and he was learning disabled, didn't stop him from having a big dream. And his dream was that he wanted to play in our basketball program. Tries out for our JV team. I was the varsity coach. And after a couple days of tryouts, my JV coach comes to me and says, Coach, Jason's not a very good player. But man, he's got a big heart. I think we should keep him in the program. I said, what do you got in mind? He says, I'm going to offer him the team manager job. I'm going to let him practice with the team every day. And that's what he did. And I will admit, early in the season, there were some trials and tribulations as Jason got used to his new team. And his new team got used to Jason. Meanwhile, the head coach, that was me, could not pronounce his last name. In fact, if butchering his last name was a misdemeanor, I would have been on death row. I could not pronounce his last name. So one day, I walked by the JV practice. I said, J-Mac, you know how Syracuse University has GMAC? They had a player, Jerry McNamara, played in the Nationals. He goes, I love GMAC. I said, well, if Syracuse could have GMAC, can Greece Athena have JMAC? He goes, Coach, I like that. So it stuck. It was a win-win. He liked the nickname. I didn't have to say McElwain. So JMAC, now, this was our second key. As the season progressed, I really started to see this bond between the JV players in JMAC and the varsity players. It really warmed my heart because Jason would always come dressed in a white shirt and a black tie. And after a game, he'd be totally disheveled. And to see one of his teammates or one of the varsity players fixing his tie and straightening him out was really something nice. And what we did is we really worked on number 2, which is building trust. Do you believe it's important to build trust to have a successful team? How many agree? Okay, I think almost everyone. And so in building trust, how do you do that? I believe building trust is like building a bank account. If you put deposits in, what are you going to get? What's going to happen to the account? Is it going to grow? Okay, what happens if you consistently take withdrawals out? What's going to happen? It's going to get smaller, deplete, right? I believe that's the same thing in building trust, except with this caveat. How many would agree with this statement? It takes time to build trust, but you can destroy it with one bad choice. How many agree with that? Okay. Here's what we're thinking about, is that I have 3 keys I'm going to talk about in building trust. And when we did this, is in building trust, if we're going to build a bank account, because one of the things I would talk to our players all the time is I wanted them to be drug, alcohol, and tobacco free. We talk about that all the time. Now, if we share the importance of that to our team, and the next week I went out and got a DWI, what do you think that would have done to our trust account? It would have destroyed it. I would have never gotten it back to that team, and it might have taken years to get it back. All right, so here are our keys. First thing is, say what you do and do what you say. Okay? Have you ever heard of people that what I call talk a good game? They have all these great ideas, but nothing ever gets implemented. Have you ever known a leader like that? Okay? So you've got to really build the trust by if you say you're going to do something, that you consistently do it. Second one. Tell people the truth. As the Bible says, the truth will set you free. And here's the key to that. We really focused on trying not to embarrass our student athletes. Now, I'm not saying that I never did. I'm human. But we did a lot of things behind closed doors when we needed to. But one of the things we always emphasize, if we're going to have a great team, we have to trust each other, so we have to tell the truth. We would really come down hard on our players if they didn't tell the truth. The third key is something that I want you to think about as a leader. It's a change in the mindset. And the mindset is, I often caught in this, I've observed the leaders, is that they think as a leader, I've got to constantly critique. I've got to constantly correct. And although I believe that is part of leadership, that you do have to correct, I want you to change your mindset. I want you more times than correcting, I want you to catch people doing right. And when you do, recognize it. Praise them. Tell them specifically, Susie, what a great pass, making an extra pass. All right? Johnny, way to chase down that running back. No one else on the team would have done that. You know, but what you got to do is you got to catch people doing right more than you're criticizing. And when you do that, that's what I really believe helped our program, is that we build trust using these 3 foundational keys. And something as you guys, the leaders, I want you to really be working on building trust with your team. Okay? Because I can't guarantee a championship. But what I can think, I believe, is that you all can do a little bit better. And when you do that, you'll be amazed on what can happen. So J-Mac's sophomore year, at the end of the season, he helps the varsity when we went into sectionals. Guess what? We made the sectional semifinals again for the 5th time in my career. Guess what? We lost. All right? And this is where I started to develop really a close bond with J-Mac. Between his sophomore and junior year, he's now going to come out for the varsity team, the team that I coach. And I was picking him up, I was bringing him to our off-season workouts, and he was really becoming a big part of this. And he tries out for the team as a junior. After a couple days of tryouts, I bring him in and I say, J-Mac, unfortunately, you're not quite good enough to make the team. But I would like to offer you the team manager's job for the varsity. And he quickly embraced it. He says, I can't wait, coach. And that year, he developed a mantra. The mantra was, we're going to stay focused, and we're going to help Coach Johnson win his first sectional championship. We have another good season. You're going to be shocked by this, but we made it to the semifinals again for the 6th time, and we lost at the buzzer to our crosstown rival. We were devastated. That didn't stop J-Mac. He was more bound and determined to make the team as a senior. Comes to all our off-season workouts again, and after a few days of tryouts, I bring him in and I said, J-Mac, I got some good news and some bad news. He says, Coach, give me the bad news first. I said, well, unfortunately, you're still not quite good enough to make the team. And this time he was visibly disappointed. His head dropped down. You could see he was upset. I said, I do have some good news, though. His head popped out up, and he said, Coach, what do you got in mind? I said, well, for senior night. He says, I'm a senior. And I said, I know. For senior night, I'm going to give you a uniform, and hopefully you'll choose the game. Well, periodically, he would ask me about that uniform. And of course, I defined periodically as about every other day. He was pretty excited about that uniform. Well, the third key is what we did is we focused on creating an edge. And as a leader, do you believe you should be trying to find ways that you can create an edge for your team? How many agree with that? Right? I truly believe that's very essential to be successful. So we're working on creating an edge. Now, there was a lot of things we did to try to create an edge for our program. I'm going to focus on 2. I'm going to take you through a little activity. And it's not going to be something that's going to be unknown to you, but I found as I travel around the country that we don't practice these very well. So the 2 things I'm going to talk about is how to be an effective goal setter. And I'm going to talk about using other voices. And I'm going to start by sharing just a little bit about using other voices. As a leader, you're going to find this hard to believe, but you don't know it. And I have studied leadership extensively, and I have found the best leaders surround themselves with the best people. And they use other voices to reinforce. I'll give you an illustration in basketball. When I started coaching, there were some things that I didn't like about coaching. There's some things I loved about coaching. I loved preparing for practice and running a practice. I loved building a team. I loved game days. I didn't like the things like, I didn't like film work, although I did a lot of it. I didn't like the conditioning part, although I knew it was essential for it to be successful. So one of the things that I did is I hired a strength coach. Before, now everybody has a strength coach, but back then, barely anybody did. And what I found is I interviewed him, we made sure our philosophies were in sync, and then I let him do his thing. And our teams exploded because I used other voices. Okay? So use those different things as you're doing that. Now, let's focus in. What we did every year in goal setting is after our team was chosen, I would invite the team over to my house. We'd have a lunch, and we would talk about our program mission. We would talk about rules and consequences. And as a leader, I think you have to have a few non-negotiables. I'll give you one example. Non-negotiable for my team was they had to be on time. Okay? They couldn't be on time, they had to be over. So that was non-negotiable. But there were other things I wanted to hear from them. What was important to them, and how were we going to handle it? What were the consequences if someone broke a rule? All right? We didn't have a lot of rules. You know, do the right thing. Be a great teammate. You know, those are things we try to focus in on. But as a leader, you got to decide what's important and get feedback. And the other thing we did is we would set team goals. Now, here's the key to leadership. Early on, I never thought of finding what each individual player's goals were. It was all about the team, right? Well, yes and no. As a leader, you have to show you care about each individual. So what we would do at the end of that meeting is I would give them, we would show a video on how to effectively goal set. I would give them some principles, and we're going to take you through a little bit in just a minute. And then I would set up individual meetings, and we would go over their goals and how their goals were going to work together with the team for their team goals. So here's the first exercise we're going to do. This is called the quick list method. What you're going to do, you can either do it writing it or you can put it on your phone, is you have 45 seconds. In those 45 seconds, I want you to write out your 3 most important goals. Your 3 most important goals. All right, ready? Go. Seconds. 20. 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. How many, with a show of hands, were able to write down the 3 most important goals? All right, we have some. I found this to be a powerful exercise because it will help you with clarity. Well, what is most important? I was a big quote guy. I love quotes. I would give my team a quote every day. One of my favorite goal quotes was, "You can't hit a target you don't have." Another statement we always would say is, when you think it, ink it. What do I mean by that? Write it down. How many of you have your goals written down right now? A few. Now, I've studied goal setting extensively because it was very fascinating to me. And what I found that less than 10% of our country write their goals down. Yet, the research shows that if you write your goals down, you are 10 times more likely to have them come to fruition than if you don't. It's pretty powerful. So I'm going to take you through 2 exercises. This is our other homework assignment that you're going to do. The first thing you're going to do tomorrow, I'll give you tonight to think it over, is I want you to get 5 index cards. And on those 5 index cards, I want you to write, the first index card, I want you to write, "I am responsible." Because who's the first person you got to lead? Yourself. And you're going to reinforce that. And the second thing you're going to put is, "I like myself." Because I truly believe that effective leaders care about themselves, because it's hard to care about others if you don't care about yourself. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about being arrogant. I'm talking about being humble, but caring yourself. So you're going to say, "I am responsible, I like myself," and then you're going to write out your 3 goals, your 3 most important goals on those other 3 index cards. And then, tomorrow morning, you're going to get in front of a mirror, and you're going to say those 5 things. I am responsible, I like myself, and the 3 goals. Now, you can add to that, but that's where you're going to start. You're going to do that in the morning, try to do it sometime in the middle of the day, and then do it right before you go to bed, because it builds in your self-conscious. Okay? So you really are getting clearer about what's most important to you. Then, as I mentioned earlier, I believe leaders continue to add disciplines. I've done the goals, I've taught my players for years, and I did the goal cards, I still do them to this day, I've done them for years. But as I said, I do a lot of research on goal setting, and I got this other idea. I started about 4 years ago. And what I do is I get a spiral notebook. Now, I do 10 goals every single day that I would like to try to accomplish in the next year to 5 years. And I put the date up at the top, and it's a great little discipline. Because I found the most successful leaders are constantly adding little disciplines. It only take you a few minutes, but it's something, again, to help you focus. Well, JMAC's senior year, we have this team meeting. I meet with all the players. We were supposed to have a really good team. First 2 games, win a tournament. We're 2-0. And then disaster hits. Adversity. I wrote about it in my book. I'm not going to share it. It's too long a story. All I can say is we had eternal strife to the max, where I nearly resigned. And thank God I had a great staff and a wonderful wife. You know what they said? Jim, you always tell your players when the going gets tough, the tough get going. This is your time to step up. So I hung in there, but unfortunately we really struggled the first part of the season after winning our first 2 games. We should have been 7-0. We went to our Christmas tournament. We were 4-3. And we're really struggling. We went to this Christmas tournament at a big high school in Rochester called Fairport, the biggest high school in Rochester now, and they were really good that year. And in the opening round, we won barely. In Fairport, in the second game, we beat a team by 40 points that we had barely beaten the week before. And this came to my 4th key, which is effective communication. The next day, we didn't have school because it was during Christmas break. So during game days, when we don't have school, we'd come in with a short practice we call the shoot around. And that day, I never brought the basketballs out. What I did is I sat them down in the gym, and I looked them right in the eye. And I shocked them with my sleeve. They said, I don't want to go to the game tonight. And they were in disbelief. And then I went on and talked about what it takes to be a team. And so the first point is, I think it's helpful as a leader if you can speak in front of groups. I don't think it's the most important thing. I know some outstanding leaders that are not good public speakers, but I think it helps. I think it's something you should think about trying to improve. But the most important part about effective communication was after my little 3 or 4 minute talk was what I did next. I said, we're not leaving the gym until we design a plan on how we're going to be a team. And the key to that was you got to be a great listener. The old adage, if you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, you should listen at least twice as much as you talk. And that's what I really found is when I changed and started to listen more to my players, our teams exploded with success. Well, I wish I could end that part of the story by saying we went to that Christmas tournament that night and we beat Fairport. We did that. We lost them in overtime. But it did show what we could do because we played so much better as a team. We showed that we cared for each other. And then we went on a nice run. We won 8 out of our next 9 games going into senior night. Now, senior night, I had 30 of them as a head coach. It's where we recognize the seniors, we bring them out, we bring in out their parents and guardians, And that senior night in 2006 was very special for one major reason. J-Mac, instead of in his white shirt and black tie, is now donning number 52. I gave it to him 2 days earlier. There was a rumor around school that he slept in it for 2 straight nights. I don't know if that was true, but it was wrinkled on senior night. But to see him embrace his parents in uniform was a memory I will always cherish. Well, the game begins. And you saw from the video, we had a pretty good student body following. They call themselves the 6 men. And at the opening tap, I started hearing this. We want J-Mac. We want J-Mac. I guess just in case I forgot. Well, going into the game, I had 3 ideas. One, because we had rallied the season, if we won that game, we had a chance to tie for the league championship. 2, although I wanted to get J-Mac in the game, I knew I had to get everybody else in before I could put him in. And 3, I wanted to get Jason in with enough time so he could score a basket. I thought if he could score a basket, that'd be a great memory he would always have. After 3 quarters of the game, we got everybody in but J-Mac. With just over 4 minutes to go, I stood, I pointed to him. He nearly ran right on the court. He was so excited. Our JV coach grabbed him, got him over to the scorer's table. What happened next? See, I think I'm a pretty macho guy. I normally don't cry at basketball games. But unfortunately, that changed that night. What happened next is when Jason entered the game, not only did our student body give him a standing ovation, but they showed these pictures, these placards of J-Mac's face that one of our parents had made for them. And I was so overwhelmed with emotion, I never do this. I actually sat down and tears are now rolling down my face. I'm trying to wipe them off. It didn't look good. The game now begins. Jason's in his first varsity basketball game. The first time he got the ball, you saw it in the video, he got it behind the arc at the right corner. He lets go of his shot. The crowd stands in anticipation. It misses by like 6 feet. Now, I know you're not supposed to pray in the public schools, but I was praying, dear God, please help me just get 1 basket. But here's the lesson for us as leaders. Imagine if J-Mac would have gave up after his first failure. Imagine in your own life. Did you give up the first time you failed? That's something to think about. Because one of the things we taught our players is next play. And next play meant that we were going to move on when you made a mistake. And Jason was the essence of that. Next possession, you didn't see on the video, I got to add a little drama because it might be a movie someday. He shoots it like a 10-foot, it hits the backboard, it hits the rim, and it falls out. The crowd grows. I'm thinking to myself, all right, God's starting to listen. We're getting closer. 3rd possession. Jason has it the right arc behind the 3-point line. He lets go a shot. This time, magic. It goes in. The place explodes. I'm thinking to myself, God must be a basketball fan. Not only has Jason scored, he's got a 3-pointer. It can't get any better than this, right? Wrong. For the next 3 minutes, J-Mac turns into his boyhood idol, Kobe Bryant. And he starts making shot after shot after shot. And the place is going crazier and crazier. And with about a minute to go, I'll never forget this. I'm still sitting down, tears still rolling down my face, and I get a tap on my shoulder. I look behind me, and it's J-Mac's mother. She's bawling her eyes out. She gives me a big hug, and she whispers in my ear, Coach, this is the best gift you could have ever given your son, my son. What would you have done if some of your mom said that to you? I cried harder. Now, this is how the game ends. With about 10 seconds to go in the game, our opponent that I Spencer Port, and I want to give kudos to their coach and their team. They were very gracious sports. I'm in the little audience participation. Spencer Port scores. Our player takes the ball out of bounds. He normally throws it through a point guard. For some unknown reason, this time he throws it right to J-Mac. So I'm going to demonstrate J-Mac dribbling down. If you can help me count down from 10. Ready? 10.
9, 8,
Now you're thinking he just went in and made a layup, right? Game over, great stuff. Oh no, we gotta have more time than that. Jason pulls up like 2 feet behind that, are almost an NBA three. I said, Jason, don't shoot from that, it's way too far. He lets go of this rainbow. Swish. I look over. Our student body runs on the floor. Our players run on the floor. I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm living the movie Rudy. And then Jason's parents have an interesting dynamic. His dad is 6'6", and his mom is 5'2". I see this little bitty lady bobbing and weaving through the crowd. She gets to Jason. She gives him a big hug. Jason embraced her for a moment, then he had enough of her. And then our players put Jason up on their shoulders. And he's got the game ball over his head. And at this point, I have no idea how many points he scored. And our public address announcer comes on, and he says, the leading scorer for the Trojans tonight, J-Mac with 20 points. Now, with my math brain, I'm thinking, he played the whole game. He scored 160. That's pretty good. The other thing I'll never forget about the post-game festivities is after about 10 minutes, I see our student body coaxing Jason over to where he normally sits, and he's signing the placards of his face. It was truly remarkable. I will tell you this. I'm very humbled that I've seen some really neat stories that I think was a ripple effect of the J-Mac story. I'm proud of it. But I'm also proud that my heart, I did it for the right reasons. There was no media there that night. It was done because I wanted to give a young man a chance. The only media is after the game, one of my responsibilities that I have to call into our local paper, which was called the Democratic Chronicle, or DNC. I called it in, and it was a female sports writer, and she said, Coach, somebody called in for the game, but I think I misunderstood. Your team manager got in and scored 2 points, right? I said, no, he scored 20. I'm thinking he's going to get a headline in the DNC next day. I get home, my wife and son, they were at the game, they were amazed. I don't sleep a win. I open up the paper the next morning, we got a headline. It says, Trojans, our nickname, ties for league title. I'm like, huh, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal. I mentioned a little bit that Jason scored 20 points. So I went to school that day, and I gotta admit, I didn't do much teaching that day. We watched that game film over and over again. And students would come up to me and go, Coach, this is going to get on ESPN. I said, ESPN? We get a headline in our local paper. But as usual, these students were right and I was wrong. I thought that's where it was going to end. What I didn't know is Jason's speech pathologist, he had never come to the game. He had worked with Jason for 4 years, and Jason told him he might get in. He came to the game the next day at school. He called one of our local TV stations, Channel 8, said, you've got to borrow the tape from the coach. This is the best thing I've ever seen in sports. They did, and I got a nice response locally. So the next day we had 3 TV stations come in. In fact, one of them asked, Jamie, can you describe what happened? He says, I was just hot as a pistol. And then Friday night, one of our other sports directors called me and said, Jim, would you mind if I send out national? I said, no, if it can make an impact on the country, I think that'd be wonderful. Well, we were going into February break, where our players were off from school, but we're coming back for that postseason tournament that we've never won. It was a very quiet weekend, and I thought that's where it's going to end. Monday morning, because we didn't have school, I'm getting ready for practice. I'm just about to leave, and the phone rings. And it's CBS Evening News. They normally don't call the house. I said, Coach, we've heard about the game. We want to come in and do a story about it. They showed it on Thursday night, and then it exploded. In fact, Friday morning, we had a bye in our first round. Friday morning, February break, it was pretty typical practice at Greece Athena. Before practice, we were interviewed by Good Morning America, ESPN, and CNN. Then after practice, ESPN stayed for like 5 hours. And I told you, my wife and I have been married 36 years. But that day wasn't so good for our marriage. Because I told her I was going to be home by 2 o'clock. I got home at 5 o'clock. I nearly knocked the door open. I said, honey, we got a documentary on ESPN. She goes, where have you been? I said, honey, you're not listening. We got a documentary on ESPN. She goes, do you realize how many people called here for you today? And she crumbles up all these names and numbers. She fires them at me, and she goes, I am not your secretary. Now, I will say the next week when Oprah showed up at the house, she did pick the phone up. Well, we won our first round game because we had a bye in the first round, and we won our first round game. And this was my key number 5. This was the lacking ingredient of why, in my belief, of why we were struggling in the postseason. And that is to lead by example. Now, I told you about my mission statement, to be an outstanding role model. What I realized after a lot of analysis, after many seasons being brokenhearted because we kept losing the sectional, I realized that I was becoming a different person in the postseason. I was more intense. I was putting more pressure on my teams. And therefore, how do you think my teams were playing? They were tight. Okay? Because of me. So what I decided was that I had to be the rock when adversity hit. Because in the postseason, in most sports, when adversity hits, if you don't handle it, your season's done. Okay? So we got in there and we talked about, as a leader, you are always on stage. And if you don't believe that, I totally believe you're wrong. People are always looking at you. And I didn't realize that in the postseason. And when I really changed that mindset to how I was going to handle adversity during the postseason, better things happened. And the second thing is, going back to trust, are you saying what you're saying and doing what you're saying? Okay. That's essential. We get to the semifinals. Tuesday night that year. Now for the 7th time in my career. And I'm a practicing Catholic. The trouble that night was we're playing a Catholic school. And I don't know who's going to get to God first. Well, I'm praying, and I'm thinking God's listening to me because we're up 10 at halftime. Then adversity struck. We ended up losing the lead. We were losing in the 4th quarter. What changed, though, was my demeanor. I stayed strong. I was positive. I kept the team together. We rallied, and we finally won. We were going to the finals for the first time. Now, we were getting a lot of media attention. Our championship game was in the Rochester Warren Memorial, now called the Blue Cross Arena. This arena seats about 11,000 people. For a championship game in our high school tournament, we would usually get anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people. It was Saturday night that year. We walked in the arena, and my eyes popped out as I witnessed 11,000 people there. It was sold out. And Channel 8 wants to interview me. They asked me a few questions, and they said, "Coach, is it okay if we interview J-Mac?" I said, "Sure." J-Mac's sitting up a couple rows from me, I'm down on the floor. I turned to him and I said, "J-Mac, Channel 8 wants to interview you." He stands up, he says, "Coach, it's time to get focused, no media interviews." I'm thinking we're ready. Our first championship game. We're down 14-3 after 4 minutes. Not good. But again, with the good, the adversity, fortunately, I was able to handle it much better. And our team had great resilience. We battled back. We actually took a 5-point lead in the 4th quarter, blew that lead. Came down to last possession. Our player makes a 3. We're up 3. I'm standing like this. The opponent comes down. They shoot a shot. They stand for the rebound, and whack! I got tackled by my JV coach, which indicated we won Section 5 championship for the first time. We had finally done it. You can clap if you want. You helped relieve that memory. That's pretty cool. And the interesting thing is, after the game, remember I talked about ESPN? we went to a local restaurant with our team, and we actually watched highlights of our high school games on ESPN. That was pretty good. Well, that season, unfortunately, we went into the state tournament. We lost. And that ended the season, but the two questions that I'm often asked and I've thought about a lot, I'm going to ask you them now, is the first question is, as a leader, how do you take your team, your organization, your business to the top, whatever that's defined as? Okay? But here's the second question, which is even more difficult. As a leader, when you get to the top, how do you stay there? Hard questions to answer. And what I found is putting these last two principles, because we want to get the next year. Then JMAC came back and helped me. In fact, in our last 9 years together, we won 4 more championships, so for a small fee, I will run them out to you. But the interesting thing is that in my first 19 years as a head coach, we won 1 sectional championship. In my last 11 years as a head coach, we made the finals 8 times and won 6. What was the difference? Well, I think it started with these principles. Is number 6 is called leaving a profit. And that's a leadership philosophy. And I'm going to talk to you, and we're going to get you involved in a couple things of that. We're going to come back to leadership philosophy. There we go. And personal growth. All right, first of all, your student athletes. How many are trying to get better each day? How many of you are trying to get better each day? So another way to ask that question is, how many of you have a personal growth plan? Something where you're trying to feed your mind consistently on a day in and day out basis to get yourself better. Okay? How many of you are readers? Okay? You're going to have to read some in college, but think about this. If people that have had great success in our world write a book, and it took them 20 years to figure out how to be successful, or longer, and you can read it in a week or less, do you think that would give you an advantage over your competition? Okay? As I talk here, I have a lot of time tested as a coach, as a leader, but I've also read well over 1,000 books on success and leadership. Okay? In fact, if you follow me on social media, I do a book recommendation every week. So I have a goal to read a book a week now. Okay? How many of you have a driver's license? If you don't, raise your hand anyways, I'm embarrassing. How many have turned your car into an automobile on wheels, or a library on wheels, excuse me? What are you listening in your car? Because you can learn a foreign language while you're driving your car. So think about that. How are different ways? Another idea that most young people I found have not got this, in fact, I didn't do a very good job until I got older, is think about getting involved in what we call a mastermind group, where a group of people consistently get together and talk about, like I have 3 mastermind groups for speaking right now. I used to have a mastermind group when I was a coach. Okay, when we meet and talk, or I talk on the phone, okay, and try to figure out how can I become a better speaker. Before it was how can I be a better coach and leader. Okay, so work at it, and we're going to give you a little thing. Now, our activity here, you're going to turn to a person next to you, and here's your exercise. The first part of this, and leave a profit, is my leadership philosophy. I'm going to share a little bit about that, but I'm going to ask you first, what is your leadership philosophy? So I want you to turn to the person next to you, decide who's going first. You each have 30 seconds. Go ahead and share that. not switched, go ahead and do that now. You got another 20 seconds. Go ahead. All right. Would anybody like to share their leadership philosophy before I share mine? Who would like to share this? Oh, okay. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Doing the right thing when no one's looking, setting an awesome example. Well done. What's your name? Alexa. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Alexa's the only bold one? All right, well, I'm not going to hold you up all day, so we'll, all right, what does leave a profit mean? This is our leadership philosophy. Is leave a profit is everything that we touched, we wanted to turn to gold, not garbage. In other words, everything that we got involved with, we wanted to get better, not worse. That was our philosophy. Now let me give you an illustration. When we would travel to an opponent's school, one of our expectations was that we would leave the locker room in better shape or condition than when we got there. Now, we talked about number 5, lead by example. When we would walk into a locker room, I'd walk in there, and sometimes I would see a bottle or a piece of paper. What do you think I did? You're right, I picked it up. Now, did I leave it there? No, but that was our whole thing, because what was I ingraining into our team? Everything that we touch, we're going to make better. Okay? It has something to think about. So what you really got to do is develop, what is your leadership philosophy all about? What are you going to stand for? What are your beliefs? And do your people know that? Are you living that? Okay? All right, so we go through there. We have a great end, and which leads to my last one. I've done a lot of studying about this one, is servant leadership, number 7. And I want to recommend, I said I was a big book reader. 2 great books that I brought with me that I've read in the last year. One is called Servant Leadership in Action by Ken Blanchard. Okay, it's a compilation of all the leaders both in religious and in business. And it's an excellent book on how all these leaders implemented servant leadership. Another one is a little bit older book I read recently called Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette. It's about David's leading a submarine that had a lot of strife, and he turned it around, and it's all about the servant leadership model. Now, what do we mean by servant leadership? Because when I talk to business leaders, I just had one earlier this week, is that people often think of servant leadership as soft leadership. It's not. It's not at all. Servant leadership is this, though. It's taking the pyramid, the traditional pyramid of the leader on top and the people working for that leader down below. And you flip the pyramid. And here's a great thing. Well, some of the things I did, because I met with my captains every week in servant leadership. We were trying to develop leaders. And I would ask them questions like, how can I support you? What are you working on that I can support you with? Okay? How is our team chemistry? How can I support you with that? Those are the questions you've got to ask each other. To have a great team and to serve and have the mindset that I'm going to serve and help develop other leaders. As I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, that I believe you all can be effective leaders. And if you take that mindset that I'm going to serve others and I'm going to develop others. Let me give you an illustration and a story. My second to last year in coaching, 3 years ago, I had the best team I ever coached. They were tremendous. In fact, all the team, the starting five, every single one of them played in college. Okay? And in that team, we were 13-0. We were ranked number 2 in the state. We had just beaten the second team, ranked team in the state by 18 points. And then adversity struck. Our second best player, our point guard, a 4-year starter, a 3-year all-grade Rochester reunion. He was one of the top 15 players in Rochester for 3 straight years. Dives to the basket, gets fouled, runs into the wall. His name is Jay. He comes up, he's kind of shaking his left arm. I said, Jay, are you okay? He was going to shoot free throws. He goes, Coach, I'm not sure. His arm collapsed. I knew right then, chances were Jay was out for the season. That was confirmed that night at the hospital when he had to have surgery to repair 2 bones he broke. But you know what was really neat, because we really spent a lot of time working with our teams on leadership. The next day, I was unsure how I was going to address the team. But I was devastated. I loved the young man, and I knew obviously it would hurt our team, both on the court and off the court. He's a great leader as well. And you know what was really great? That team came to me. No prodding for me. Said, Coach, we're going to do it for Jay. They called it 21 Strong after his number. They made these T-shirts. They went all around the school. And it was really awesome. And despite losing one of our best players, we maintained, we won 10 more games, made the state finals. Unfortunately, it didn't quite end like we wanted. We lost a close game in the finals. But that's what happens when a team rallies for a great cause. And that's what I want you to think about. Playing for a greater cause. Playing for your school. Playing for your community. And playing for each other. Okay? That's what greatness is all about. And so as we go through that, we're going to have a little partner exercise. Okay, one more. Now, I'm not Mr. Guru, so if I'd like you now, this is part of what we call a mastermind group. I want you to talk to the person on the other side of you and share with them, it could be a tip tonight, but the best leadership tip you know of. Share that with your partner right now. I'll blow the whistle at 20 seconds and the other person go. Other person go. All right. Anybody like to share their leadership tip that they learned from somebody else? This is a great exercise that you guys can support each other. Doing things like this where you're sharing ideas. Anybody pick up something they really liked or something they already had in their mind to be effective? Yes? The best leaders what? The best leaders are disciplined. Thanks for sharing. That's great. Give her a hand. Anybody else? Yes?
Help others before you help yourself.
Help others before you help yourself. One more before I move on. Yes. Lead by example. All right, go ahead. All right. Let's review. Okay. Now, before we review, I'd like to say this, is that I'm going to be here afterwards. If there's interest in the book, I do hold a book. I've got a few bookmarks if you want to pick up my 7 leadership keys. I'd love to stay in touch with you. We'll have some information right at the end. If you want to pick up a card, feel free to see me. Before, and certainly I'll be here to answer any questions, but right now, is there anybody that would like to ask a question that I can answer? Or at least attempt to answer? Yes, sir. Could you stand up so we can hear you? Yeah, Joe.
Did you ever consider what it would have been like if you hadn't played the whole year?
I get kidded about that by a lot, but I will say this. In my heart, I think I did the right thing to give it an opportunity. I've seen him play hundreds of times. We come to all our all-season workout. And I will say, because at that point in 2006, there was not a lot known about autism. And in my heart and my belief, I believe it was God's way of sharing a miracle with people. That's my thoughts. Anybody else? Okay, again, I'll be glad to answer any questions at the end. All right, let's go through. What were our 7 keys? What was the first one? Okay, clarifying your vision. Number our homework assignment, create a mission statement. 2, building trust. Number like a trust account. Number you can smash that account. What was the third one? Creating an edge. We talked about goal setting. You've got some homework. Okay, write your 3 goals down. I'm responsible. I like myself. What was 4? All right. Remember, you're going to listen twice as much as you talk. What was the 5th one? All right. Okay, lead by example. Are you leading them? You're always on stage. 6. What is your leadership philosophy? What was 7? Servant leader, you're going to flip the pyramid. You're going to work to serve others. All right. Now, there's all 7s. There we go. Now, I would like, and you know what? I can either end with 2 stories or 1 story. 1 story? All right, here's what we got. There's 1 story. I challenge the audience. All right, now, I'll give you a very quick J-Mac story. Okay? As I mentioned, J-Mac came back and helped our program for our last 9 years. So about 7 years ago, he sit in my office and he goes, Coach, thank you so much for letting me be part of the staff. I love coaching, but I really miss being competitive myself. I'm going to get back and running, because he was a runner in high school. So I said, really? What are you going to do? He says, I'm going to run the Rochester Marathon. Now, just one little fact, Jay Mack in that game was 5'9", 120. He's now 6'2", 175. So he had a growth spurt after high school. Well, I said, Jay Mack, you're going to run the Rochester Marathon. What's your goal for the Rochester Marathon? He says, Coach, I want to qualify for my age group for the Boston Marathon. So I don't know how many of you are runners or familiar with marathon time. I am a runner, although I'm not a marathon runner, but I know a lot about marathon time. He tells me 3 hours and 5 minutes. Now, I go very hard. If you know anything about running a marathon, 3 hours and 5 minutes for your first marathon is really running fast, believe me. I said, Jason, that's a really fast marathon. He says, Coach, I met with Coach Shoemaker, he was our cross-country coach. He's laid out a plan I'm going to follow. Runs his first Rochester Marathon. 3 hours, 1 minute, 52 seconds. He says to me the next day, Coach, I'm not ready to run Boston. I said, what do you mean you qualified? He says, nope, I gotta do it one more time in Rochester. The interesting part is the next year when you're supposed to go to Boston was the year of bound. Unbelievable. Talk about faith in God, right? He runs Rochester again the next year, has to break 3:05, runs it 3 hours, 46 seconds. So he's ready for Boston. So I said, Jason, what's your goal for Boston? He says, Coach, I'm going to break 3 hours in Boston. I said, Jason, Boston is a much harder course than Rochester. He goes, Coach, I've upgraded my training. First Boston Marathon, 2 hours, 58 minutes, 41 seconds. So don't tell me, and I would never go in front of any audience and say that you can do anything you possibly want. Because I don't believe that. What I do believe is you can do a lot more than you think you can, and Jason's a great illustration. Let's close with a servant leadership story. All right. Before I was at Greece Athena, my last 20 years, I was coach at Greece Olympia. My third year, I had a young man come in. His name was Alex, and he was born in Nigeria. He came over to live in the United States with the older brother who was working here in the U.S. And he comes into Greece Olympia as a junior in high school. And he starts coming to our fall workouts, and I'm getting to know him, and I started asking Alex about his goals, and he told me his goal is I want to get a full basketball scholarship here in the United States. And I thought he had a chance. He was pretty good size, about 6'3", he was a good athlete, and I thought he had a chance. Well, he's coming to our fall workouts 1 week before we started basketball practice. I'm in my office at night getting ready for an open gym. And I get a knock on the door. And I open the door, and it's Alex. And I can see he was kind of distraught. I said, Alex, what's going on? He goes, Coach, can I talk to you? I said, sure. And then he broke down in tears. I said, Alex, what's going on? You okay? He goes, Coach, I went home after school today. And my brother told me that we're going to have to move again. This will be the 4th high school in 3 years. Is there any chance I could stay here? I like it. I said, well, I don't know if my wife will go for the open bedroom, but we'll see what we can do. I had a family function the next day, and I brought up Alex's dilemma to some of my relatives, and my aunt, her name was Midge, she says, well, Jim, I'll take him in for a week until we can find him a home. And of course, that 7 days turned into 7 years. But the interesting thing is, Alex underachieved. He was a talented athlete, but his attitude was subpar, his work ethic wasn't very good. And in the 2 years he played for us at Olympia, he did okay, but he had no scholarship offers. And this is where I give my aunt, the servant leader she is. She kept pushing. I was hard on Alex, but she was tough love all the way. She said, Alex, you got more to give. She finally convinced him to go to a prep school. And there, Alex's light came on. He realized what we were telling him was true. He had to work harder, he had to change his attitude. Well, the story gets much better. He has a great year at the prep school, and his dream comes true. He gets a full basketball scholarship to a Division II school in Vermont. The story doesn't end there. He goes there, he has a wonderful career, he ends up being the senior athlete of the year. But it doesn't end there. He gets an opportunity after college to work for an organization that probably some of you have heard of, called MTV. And at MTV, Alex has another dream. His dream is to take MTV back to Africa, where he was born. And 8 years ago, he was named vice president of MTV Africa. 7 years ago, My aunt calls me one day. She says, Jim, you've got to pick up Forbes magazine this week. I said, Aunt, I don't read Forbes magazine, I read Sports Illustrated. She goes, well, you want to read Forbes this week. I said, why is that? Alex is on the cover. So my final challenge to you is to go out and affect other lives by shining light on others. And let's together go out and make this a better world for all. I'm going to be following you guys this year. Good luck this year, and God bless you.